journey together. I wish all of us a very fruitful preparation for the coming Easter and daily joy and appreciation of our community and our faith together. This Lent is slightly different than others, and in a sense it's pretty much the same. The world has changed a lot since last year, and it seems that as if the world is about to forget those centers of love which hold us together. And in these times, it is so important as a community and as a church to return to our first love, to return to the middle of our faith, and to pray together with all the churches worldwide through those things which connect us. In a sense, this is the Lenten vocation and call of all the churches to return to their Catholic center, to the Catholica, which we confess in every creed. And this is true for the Church of England, this is true for the Roman Catholic Church and all the churches. So let us be guarded by God's love in the center. In my meditation, I'm using the thoughts of Pope Benedict XVI, the previous Pope. My friend and spiritual director told me when I was trained in the priest that when things are confusing, when the world is lost, it's good to draw on from the teaching of the popes, because they are always in the middle, without extremes. So today, let us focus on the first temptation. The devil proposes that Jesus should change the stones of the desert into bread. This is a reference to the miracle of the manna. The Messiah, according to the Jewish rabbinical tradition, has to repeat this miracle of the desert when people were fed by the manna. The Messiah, at the end of time, should repeat this miracle in a definitive form. He should give mankind everlasting bread, and he should do away with the hunger and create a world when all would have enough. A world of complete prosperity, peace, without divisions, without wars. And the devil's proposal is very plausible. As a politician in his constituency, he would win many votes with this program, as hunger is one of the most tragic facts of life, not mentioning the other maladies of human life. If we were asked to devise salvation on our own, bread would be a central problem to start with indeed. But what happens? In fact, Jesus gives us bread. It is his central gift, but in a manner completely different from that proposed by Satan. Jesus, the grain of wheat dying for us, becomes bread. In the Eucharist, what we receive, the multiplication of the loaves will last until the end of time. And then God will be revealed and will be our everlasting bread. But what is the real difference between the Eucharistic miracle, the divine miracle, and the miracle suggested by Satan? This difference is not so obvious, and it is only us Christians who can understand this vital, this crucial difference. Man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Without responding to the hunger of truth, without curing the malady of the soul wounded by deceit, or in a word, without truth and God, we cannot be saved. This is Jesus' answer to this temptation. He unmasks the devil's lie. According to Satan's view of the world, God is presented as something secondary, something which is not necessary for the salvation of man. If people would like to come to church on a Sunday, it's their option. If they don't want to go, no worries. God is only secondary among the businesses of life. According to Satan, man should center on his belly, as it were, to start with his own need, and then comes only God. The devil's lie is dangerous because it contains an absolute part of the truth. Man does live also by bread, Jesus adds, but not bread alone. Jesus unmasks the devil's offer that bread alone suffices. It's not true. The hunger of the world and all our social problems, they are a terrible evil. But to remove only this evil does not reach to the root of human malady. And this is the key. Without restoring our relationship with God, with love, we only keep repeating our problems. Wars, epidemics, the breakdown of personal relationships, crimes, family feuds are being kept repeated. Jesus will in his good time multiply the bread. He will remove in his good time all our sufferings. But he multiplies the bread by means of love. He distributes our bread and actions that heal through his word. The word which opens people to the truth and saves them in very truth. In other words, and this is what we contemplate in Lent, only God suffices. Only God is sufficient. Give someone all the good things in the world, but withhold God. Give everything what one needs, but without God, and the person is not saved. And this happens time and again in our society. Think of the benefit system, how often it is abused. Everything is kept repeated and not healed to the core without making God a priority. So economic development, spreading our values, the values of democracies, going at wars without first consulting with God, without our spiritual development first, is actually destroying us and the world. This is a great lesson of Lent, not frightening, but encouraging and motivating. Our way is the Eucharist, because first our souls must be healed. Its wounds must be treated. Every Holy Communion reminds us that in our life, God has a priority. It is a reminder that the devil's lie could enter into our soul and people's soul if God started to take second place in their personal lives. And this is a good definition of the present state of our world. God is given the second place. But God is patient and silent. And those other things and voices which are indeed urgent and demanding in our lives, they can be noisier and louder. It is much easier to put off listening to the Word of God than to do so other things. So let us think through Jesus' temptation. Let us think through in this coming week the practical implications, what happens when we make an effort to make God first in our lives, and what happens when peoples, local communities, people in workplaces put the values of God second. And let us also think it through what was said in the introduction, that Jesus invites us to the desert, to go quiet, to learn the border between what brings life and what removes life, to enter into community, the community of love, to appreciate that we have a church family together, and also that we are called to feel ourselves part of salvation history. Because if we think these things through, it's not an assurance, but it is a sign that we are saved. And this is the wonderful motivation, that we come to church, we worship God in the way He requires us to do it, because we want to be saved. And it is such a humbling gift which we receive, not simply individually, but together.